You're listening to Market the Brew, a leading resource for promoting and marketing craft beer. Join in as we share with you, straight from the source, tools and strategies craft brewers from around the country are using right now to achieve significant success. We started this episode wanting to discuss what it takes to have a successful brewery retail apparel program, but it quickly turned into so much more. We generally like to keep the podcast to around 30 to 40 minutes, but this episode ran more than 90 minutes. So we decided not to edit it down, but to share the entire episode split into 2 episodes. The first episode is 51A, the one you're about to listen to, and the other will be the conclusion of our discussion in episode 51B. This brewery is located in a county that until recently had been a dry county in central North Carolina. But in 2008, voters decisively passed a referendum allowing beer, wine, and mixed beverage alcohol to be sold in the city for the first time in nearly 60 years. Almost 7 years later, a school teacher and a Lowe's manager who became friends started to brew together and would eventually open the county's first brewery ever. When they first opened, the goal was to use inexpensive Gildan t-shirts with a one-color logo on back to promote the brewery within the city. Later, those shirts would evolve into the same branding available in several colors. Realizing their customers had one of each color of the same shirt, they had to start developing new designs that customers and travelers would want to buy and wear. Crafting the first couple of new designs after several of their more popular beers, they began to see the sales of those shirts grow. They needed to develop new designs on a regular basis and turn inventory of those designs faster. Listen in as our guests share how they adopted the buy less but buy more often philosophy and soon began to sell through smaller quantities of apparel with new designs. But before we start the podcast, a quick reminder that the Market the Brew podcast is available at marketthebrew.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio Podcasts, and other popular podcast sites. The video of the episodes will be available on the Promote the Brew YouTube channel for you to watch or listen in. We hope that you will join us and share these episodes with your family and friends. Now find a comfortable place to sit, grab a glass of your favorite beer, kick back and relax, and listen in as Danielle and Travis discuss with Joel McClosky, co-founder of Four Saints Brewing Company in Asheboro, North Carolina, and Riley Till, their manager of Continent Plastics, as they share information about the brewery and how they have developed a successful retail apparel program. Cheers.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, of course.
Could you guys introduce yourselves and tell us where you are from?
You want to go first, Riley?
No, you go first.
My name is Joel McClosky. I am owner and CEO of Four Saints Brewing Company, and we're located in the heart of North Carolina, in downtown Asheboro, North Carolina. That's what I currently do.
And I'm Riley Till, and I'm our director of Cotton and Plastics. So I manage all of our merchandise, do a lot of our designing, and screen print all of our t-shirts. And bartend.
He's also a bartender. and a wonderful artist, and aside from just the Four Saints stuff. So RileyTillArt.com.
Yeah, we've seen some of the shirts and it's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So how did you guys get into brewing?
Well, the short story for Four Saints is 2000. Jesus, you always remember this. 2008. I met Andrew through his wife. At the time, I was an elementary school teacher. I was teaching 4th grade at a school here in Asheboro, and Andrew and his wife moved in to Asheboro. She was a 3rd grade teacher. He moved down with her. He was working with Lowe's Hardware. I keep pointing this way as if you know that Lowe's is that way. So we got to know my wife and I. She was still is a teacher. I got to know Amy, Andrew's wife, pretty well because we saw her on a daily basis. His oldest daughter was in my wife's second grade class. And so we got to know him pretty well. And then one day, Amy came into my room and said, so and essentially the way it went, she looked at me and she said, so you and Kristen are pretty decent people. And that's just a weird way to start any conversation. And I said, well, thanks. And she said, and the second thing she said kind of made it stranger. She said, she goes, and I have a husband. And I went, yes. You know, Aubrey, who's their oldest daughter, is like, Aubrey's talked about him and you've talked about him. And she said, and the third thing she said was, will you be his friend? And I said, huh? And so at the time he was a manager with Lowe's Hardware. And so his days, he was either leaving the house at 6 a.m. and getting home at 6 p.m. And one of the Lowe's that he was working at was about 40 minutes away. So he'd leave the house at 6 or before 6 to be there at 6 to do a 12-hour shift and then home a little bit later. Or he was working essentially at 12 to 12 kind of thing. So they moved down for her and he had lost a lot of connections with just things outside of work and family. And so because Amy thought that I was a decent person, that he and I should hang out. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. And so we met, and at the time, Andrew is he's a gun collector. He's not a fanatic. He's not like he's just one of his hobbies. And so we would go to the range and we would shoot target practice, and then go eat, have a couple beers, or watch football on Sundays. And then he said, one day he was like, I brew my own beer. And my response to him was essentially, that's what you should have started with, instead of everything else. And so we started, and there was a couple other guys that had kind of joined in. And so there were 4 of us, and we started. Andrew had been brewing already, because he and Amy had been kind of on again relationship through middle school and high school and after those years. And so their first married Christmas, she didn't know what to get him for Christmas. I know what question you asked, like, how'd you get into brewing? It's all getting there. She didn't know what to get him for Christmas because they had been together for so long. And she was like, it's our first married Christmas. And so the only thing that she could come up with was a homebrew kit. So she bought him a homebrew kit, which, for those that don't know, and they're still out there, the simplest homebrew kit is basically a large can of malt syrup that you pour into a pot on the stove, and you boil that out, and then you put it into something to ferment. And so the first style of beer that she got him was a Belgian double, and he enjoyed that simplistic process so much. And if you get to know Andrew, that's really who he is. And we can talk about beer later, but if he decides he wants to learn how to make pizza sauce, he's not just going to take a bunch of tomatoes and mash them up and say, I got pizza sauce. He's going to do some research. He's going to figure it out and make it a thing. And so he started brewing. He was brewing beer on his stove. And so the first beer we brewed together was on his stove, and we had a lot of fun and learned a lot of stuff. And then we moved into whole grain, and we were doing a gallon at a time. And then we moved up to 5 gallons, and then we moved up to 10 gallons. And so once we were at the 10-gallon stage, basically that was, we'd get into, we would, what my wife, Kristen, would call our man days, where she would drive me over to his garage around 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, and the other guys would show up, and we'd have something to eat. Like, usually we all just kind of came with something, and Andrew would have, the setup would be there, and then we would brew a beer. And when I say that we would brew a beer, Andrew would brew the beer, and the rest of us just stood around, and we asked questions like, what are you doing now? And what's this? And every once in a while we got to stir something or pour something in. We'd sometimes be like, I touched that. Was I allowed to touch that? I don't think I was supposed to touch that. And, then we'd help bottle things up or put things into some type of, homebrew package. And then when that was all done, and we were done cleaning things, which we did a lot of cleaning, and we would sit down and throw something on the grill, and drink what we had brewed a month before. And and then that was the rest of the night of just sitting around the garage and drinking beer that we brewed and eating and talking. And at that time, beer had or alcohol, I should say, just became legal in Asheboro, because Asheboro in the mid 1950s became illegal. So basically, there was a local prohibition that alcohol could not be sold within the city limits. So you couldn't go to a restaurant, sit down and enjoy one. You couldn't go to the store and buy beer to take home. There were cities around us or towns around us that you could go and get beer to take home. But Asheboro, there was nothing, unless you were a member of the country club. So, hey, let's talk about equity. So alcohol, the alcohol referendum passed in 2008. The prohibition ended. And so it's this time in this 2009, 2010 time, as we're sitting and having beers in Andrew's garage. We're home brewing. And also at that time, if you're familiar with the beer industry, craft beer is starting to just escalate, and certainly escalating in North Carolina with the number of craft breweries that are opening up and growing. And so, we often talked about, hey, maybe we should do something like this in Asheboro. Maybe this is the time. We're right in the center. And we started doing. We had some really ridiculous plans in the beginning. We had one of the guys, his name is Jonathan, had a large garage carport that was attached to his house that was kind of like a basement, and we were like, maybe we can put the brewery here. And not thinking about literally anything else, we're like, we'll put the brewery in your garage and sell beer, because somebody did that in Portland. Portland's a way different area than Asheboro. So we had a lot of crazy dreams. But then there was an event in downtown Asheboro. It was called Art Mayhem. Everything was local. It was a local food, local music, local organizations, local art, local charities, local businesses, and they had a small little beer garden, and it was maybe 20 by 20, and they had a beer wagon, and it had 3 taps, and those 3 taps were Bud Light, Miller Lite, and Coors Light. And so, of course, we went to the beer garden, because here it is. It's, we're in Asheboro, where we haven't had beer forever. And we went and we got I was a Miller Lite guy, up until that point, Bud Light and Coors Light was garbage. The only thing you drank was Miller Light.
Hey, we're from Milwaukee.
We're from Milwaukee, so Miller Lite all day.
No, if it's good enough for Nick Lachey, it's good enough for me. We were sitting there and we were drinking these beers, and we were looking around everything and thinking about the conversations that we had, and thinking about the things that were happening in Asheboro and Randolph County. And we had the handshake moment that we were going to open up a brewery in Asheboro. And that's where the conversations turned they turned more serious, and looking at genuine financial needs and genuine space needs and equipment needs, and things grew very rapidly from, we only need a 5-gallon Sapco system, and that'll be enough to what we have now. We have a 7-barrel system, which at this point still we were hesitant about the size of it, and right now it's proven not to be as large as we could be doing, but it was at the time the right size. And had the conversations with our wives, because let's be honest, so we had this idea, and if Amy or Kristen had said no, it just wouldn't happen. And the other 2 guys, Jonathan, for him it was something he realized he wanted to do something, but beer wasn't the thing he wanted to do, so he didn't want to dive right into it. And Pete had there were some some difficulties that they were having, and it was like, it's just not going to work out for me. They're still two of our best friends, two of our biggest supporters, and that Andrew and I just went ahead and we got the thumbs up from our wives that they believed in the plan and the vision, and it wasn't about just creating a brewery to make beer so we could drink beer all day, but to create a brewery that would create a space that, from a taproom side of things, it would create a space for people as this kind of a third space, the old kind of pub mentality where it was where people would come after work to sit down and just kind of shuff off the day, or to make those connections, or to bring the family in, and just a place to be, and a place to connect, and a place to feel welcome. And then from a brewing side of things, there's nothing like this. This has never existed in Randolph County before, and it's happening literally all around us in all the counties and all the cities. The craft beer is happening, and this movement, this product is happening, and we should do it here. And through the tap room and through the production, we can then turn around and do good things into our community. We can support organizations that are doing the real work and making it a better place to live, and support the people that are making genuine sacrifices to improve the lives of others. And so be able to do that through this thing, which isn't needed. We enjoy it, but beer is not needed. To be able to turn around and to support organizations and people that are doing things that are needed. That was always the vision. And a lot of people agree with us. And so we're 7 years into it. And we're meeting the mission that we put forward, and taking steps to further that mission in some other ways, through some expansion pieces that we'll be doing hopefully within the next year or so. So that is a long answer to the question of how we got into brewing, but it is the story of how, because every once in a while there's somebody will be like, oh man, so you've always wanted to own a brewery? Like, I didn't know I wanted to own a brewery until I'm 36. Yeah. I mean that, and so yeah, it's always funny, like, oh man, you must have been like 22 and been working on this whole, like, nah, 22. Like, I barely what I knew what I wanted for breakfast. But it's this thing came to us, and we accepted the challenge. And it's been it's hard, but there's not a day that goes by that I regret it. So there you go. Riley, you get to talk next.
We like hearing those stories, and it's a cool connection because I'm a teacher myself. So hearing about how you had kind of the business side, and the teachers were like, yeah, it's like, Travis, do you have any ideas?
I wish.
I'll give you the thumbs up.
Yeah, that's everyone's like, oh, teaching drove you to it. And like, no, I mean, there's still, I still have a big heart for the principles and the idea of education, and because it's through education that we better the future. So we have a lot of teachers that are regulars, and it's just, again, it's that space we get to provide this space where they get to come in and feel safe, and that if they're sitting here and having a beer in our tap room and one of their students comes walking in, they don't feel weird about it, because these students are walking in with their parents, and they've got a pizza and they've got a pizza, and it's it's a safe space. And I love that we get to create that feeling of, oh yeah, this is just what we do. This is just part of the culture. So that's been a lot of fun.
It brings the community together.
What do you teach, by the way?
I teach special education.
Oh wow! Is there what grade level? Like what age level?
So I do like kindergarten through 3rd grade. So the little ones. They are funny.
Remember, yeah. They're what?
They are funny. They make me laugh.
Yeah, it's different views on the world. Sometimes if we could all have just that view on the world, it everybody, just make everything a little bit better. Well, that's awesome. It's great. How long have you been a teacher? I'm not trying to turn this around as an interview. Sorry.
I've been teaching 5 years and I love it.
Okay. Awesome. Very good.
But a brewery would be a great side business.
I'm not here to convince anybody, but I could also, happy to have that conversation.
So you told us a little bit about how you've been in business now 7 years.
Mhm.
What is the size of your brewery? About how many square feet?
So the current brewery is the brewery itself, the production facility it's a 7-barrel brewery. And we've got 3 7-barrel fermenters and 2 15-barrel fermenters and 2 15-barrel 2 15-barrel uni tanks, and then 1 15-barrel bright and 1 7-barrel bright. Uni tanks are the way to go. We'll never buy anything else other. It does everything in one place. From a physical standpoint, our brewery space, our tap room and production space from tip to tail is roughly about 5,000 square feet. We have a wall that divides the space, and it just so happens to be almost evenly. That was something that wasn't intended. Like, it wasn't something that we really thought about. It just how it happened. So our production space roughly is about 2,500 square feet, and our full tap room space is about 2,500 square feet. And then we take out bar and take out restroom and all that stuff, but we don't need to get into that. It's 5,000 square feet all told. The space next door that we're looking to move to add into would be it's about another 2,000 square feet. Yeah.
Do you guys have? Sorry, you can go.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you guys have do you work with a distribution company, or do you distribute by yourself, or is it just all in-house?
No, we are self-distributed.
Okay.
We from a distribution standpoint, we do everything ourselves. North Carolina is it's an interesting state, just from the politics side of things. Very. It is in the Bible Belt, so there are some conservative mindsets. Well, when it comes to alcohol, there's some really wacky alcohol laws. But one of the things that we're fortunate with, I should say, is that North Carolina allows a brewery to own, maintain, and manage all 3 levels of the tier system. So we're the producer. And once as a producer, we're also allowed to self-distribute, which is fantastic. But we're also allowed to own retail spaces. And so in some states where you can be the producer, but you're not allowed to wholesale, or you're allowed to be the producer and you're not allowed to have a tap room, North Carolina affords us that opportunity to be able to have all 3 underneath one roof. And so self-distribution for us is a big deal. One, from the size of where we are right now, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to get in with a distributor. And we like to be able to have that opportunity to be able to have some control over where our beer is going and how it is managed and where and how it's perceived outside of our space. So that's we don't have any plans to go with a distributor. If we ever get to the point and the size where we are Murphy to Manio, which, if you're not from North Carolina, Manio's on the coast and Murphy is in the mountains. If we look to get to that scope of things, potentially to move with a distributor, but I don't see that happening in the near future. And moving out of state, I've got all my friends. I say all my friends. I've all the people that I grew up with and the people that I went to school with. 80% of them are in Pennsylvania, and for Andrew, the same. Most of his family and friends are from the northwest part of Pennsylvania, New York area. There's right on the border, and so we have a lot of people asking us when are you going to distribute to Pennsylvania or to New York? Which is just a really cool idea, but to do that, we would have to sign with a distributor. And once we do that, again, from our current size and capacity, it doesn't make sense. And then to just send that beer up and be like, all right, whatever happens with it happens with it. So we just tell our family and friends that whenever we let them know when we're coming up for a visit, and we just mule it across state lines. That's
like the old ways.
Yeah, it's just, hey, I'm coming up. What do you want? Let me know. I'll put the order in, and I'll bring it to you. And Andrew does the same. So, but yeah, 7 barrels, 5,000 square feet with a potential 2,000 next door is where we are.
All right, I think this might be a question for Riley, kind of getting into the merge program.
Yay!
So can you tell us, how did the merge program begin?
So that's going to be a Joel question.
Oh.
I've been here for a year. Joel can tell you its inception. And once we get to the current, then I can.
Yes. All right. So merge the merge program. Yeah, back to me. Thanks, Riley.
Yeah, I mean,
good segue. The merge program for us started just as like any other brewery that was opening at the time. We opened up in 2015, and so there were a number of breweries that were opening, and it was, the long and short was, you had to have t-shirts. Like you had to have something for people to buy, because there were, at the time, especially then, that was the hobby for a lot of people. That was, I'm gonna hit as many breweries as I can. I'm gonna buy a t-shirt from every single one of them. And so we had to have t-shirts. And so at the time, my mindset was, let's get, we had just straight Gildan t-shirts, and nothing against Gildan, but they were, it was the cheapest, most durable t-shirt we could get, one color logo on the back. And so that was it. And they were $10 t-shirts. With the idea of making it a $10 t-shirt, that's an easy plunk for somebody to just be like, yeah, I had a couple beers, $10 for a t-shirt, let me do it. And it also from our, what's that?
Oh yeah, you have me.
Yeah, I mean, $10 for a t-shirt. And then our loyalty program, our POS is Square, and once you earn so many points, you got a free t-shirt. And so people were working up to get another t-shirt or a new design. And so for the longest time, that's really it. It was just the idea of just churning through as many t-shirts as they could to get as many t-shirts on the backs, so that people were walking around Ashburn and Randolph County, especially with a Boar Saints t-shirt on. That's all I wanted. There was nothing about any special crazy design, anything about real big aesthetics or any kind of a vibe. It was just a t-shirt with the logo on it. That was it. And I wanted as many as I could out the door, to be billboards, for people to either recognize somebody else that was wearing it and say, hey, yeah, I was just there. I go there every Thursday. Or somebody go, what's that? And it was effective. We had a lot of t-shirts that moved out, and for the longest time, one color t-shirts with one very simple logo design, which was either the wax seal, which is our wax seal, or an image of the Four Saints on the back, and that's it. Just color after color after color after color. I mean, I ran through the gamut, and I found which colors don't sell, and that is really stuck. And so once our regulars had, at least from a t-shirt side of things, had really run through and be like, hey, I've got 6 t-shirts already. I'm not looking for any more t-shirts. Yeah. What about bottle openers? What about this? What about that? And so really started taking notes off of other breweries, especially the larger ones, and what do they have? What are they doing that we can also do? So the speed openers, which some people call the bartender tool, which is the long piece of silver, with just a circle and then a bottle opener at the end. Went through a lot of those keychain bottle openers, because there were, still a lot of bottles in the market, which bottle openers don't really seem all that interesting anymore. But it was just finding those normal things and those traditional type of merchandise things, and just getting them in. And my mindset was, if we can get it local, let's get it local. If we can get it within Randolph County, let's do our best to do that. If not, let's look at the Triad, or let's look at North Carolina. Let's look at the United States. And so we were able to typically source everything through that. Like our keychains, bottle openers, our speed openers came from a place up in Rhode Island, because it was everything from them was American made. There, and we couldn't find that within North Carolina or even within the South. And so we did that. Unfortunately, they're out of business now, but it was a great company to work with. And then we just, at that point, as our customer base started to change, we started to get a little more diversity in the things that we were trying. There were some things that really went well. There were some things that really just were terrible. And we just, we had to beg people to take them. But it got to a point where managing that and really cultivating a merchandise program, really, and keeping a track of like what's here, what's coming, what are the seasons, what are the specialty things that we need to be thinking about, and even inside of that, thinking about our culture as a brewery and our customers, like what do they want? Because we could throw 1,000,001 different things. I don't know how many times I got emails about like metal lunch boxes. I'm like, man, that seems like a lot of fun. Our customers aren't going to buy that. And really being able to understand our customer base, and mostly our regulars, because they're the ones that are in here week after week after week, and they're the ones that really bring in that discipleship and that loyalty and that fan base, and they're the ones that take that out. It was a realization that it needed to move past just me, and into somebody with a larger scope, and somebody that was dealing with our customers on a daily basis, the ones that were coming in on a weekly basis, somebody with a little more creativity, somebody with some skill set that I didn't have. And at that time, Riley was working behind the bar, and he's, as already mentioned, he was an artist, so he's got some of this creativity piece of it. But also, Riley was the person that at least once a week would be like, "Hey Joel, I got an idea. Hey Joel, so I see what we got going on here. What if we tried this?" And so to me, it also seemed like Riley had an interest. He had not just in making shirts, but to take this thing, to take our merchandise program and to make it better, and to do something greater than what I was literally skirting through. And so at that point, we sat down and talked about it, and I got down on my knee and asked him if he would be the director of Cotton and Plastics, and he said yes. He said yes, and from that point, I'm gonna let Riley take and tell the story from there.
How do y'all want me to lead into this?
Just go do it. Just go
Yeah, just go for it.
Tell us, like, why was it interesting to you? Like, what was it about what we were doing as Four Saints merchandise that you enjoyed? What just kind of made you tick?
So I'd worked in bar service industry before, but I had a bigger background with retail. So already, and like merchandising within retail space. So already I completely critique and analyze all that stuff when I see it all the time. That's just how my brain is wired. If I see something that I think could be improved, that's just where my mind goes. Especially, and I also grew up with in a very DIY kind of punk culture where you go to these shows and people are selling your t-shirts and displaying them in certain ways and this and that. So with all that, my brain was wired for that, but also I also screen print and am an artist. So that's just kind of where my realm is. And so when Joel was like, "Hey man, listen, I've got a lot on my plate. If you want to do this, you have at it. That would be awesome. So I took the bones of what Joel, explained to y'all that we had, and have just kind of focused more on some of those things where, like a lot of our designs and things, it's not just me, it's me asking like our brewer and Joel and my other coworkers and customers like what they would like to see, and going to other breweries and seeing what they sell and like seeing where those things line up, and just taking what we were already doing and trying to elevate it a little bit. So kind of switching the kind of going from to a softer feeling shirt. We were using plastisol, which can feel a little bit heavier. So to get into like the more specific stuff, I use water-based ink, which is much softer. Plastisol ages where it has the cracky look, which can be cool. And then water-based are the shirts that you see that when they age, they have the vintagey, faded look a little bit. But they're more breathable, and it's not plastic on a shirt, it's dyeing the fabric of the shirt. So that was the first thing I tackled. I was like, well, hey, let me print a batch of shirts. Let's do water-based ink. This is like the stock, this is the garment I want to use. Like I was like, all right, I want to use like Bella Canvas sells really well. I want to use those. I want to do 100% cotton, and kind of just really honing in on the very specifics of what I know I like about shirts. And as someone that has sold like my own designs on shirts, the feedback that I got about like, oh man, like I wear this shirt all the time. Like it's a cool design, but like this is like the most comfortable shirt I own. And so it's more than a design that goes into what makes it sell. It really is like the comfort of it. Obviously the design plays a look, but there's a lot of other things that are a factor.
Do you remember your first design?
For Four Saints.
Yeah.
My first design for Four Saints was last summer, and Joel and I were talking about it, and it was going to be I think Joel had said he wanted to do a tie-dye shirt. I think that was the first thing he said to me, and I was like, all right, well, if we're doing tie-dye, then like I gotta do like a Grateful Dead look to it. Then that's where my head went. So I took like their classic skull, the Steal Your Face logo, and that's the other thing where I put too much time into everything I do. So most people will do the take their skull, which is already infringement, which we don't want to do anyway. So it's just playing it safe. And so I just drew my own from that same angle, but it was my own artwork, and I replaced the bolt with our seal, and that one was a hit. So that was the first one. We did a full color tie-dye, and we did like a monochromatic tie-dye, just gray and black ink, and those went quickly. Yeah.
How many stock designs do you have, and how often do you design new logos and items and stuff?
We have like 3 versions of our logo that we will use, and I could not even begin to tell you how many designs we have like in a file. I mean, that's a big thing of, I think, with the success we've had with merchandise, is that we're willing to take like it's all been local artists. We don't like Google artists that does cool shirt. Like it's just been like, hey, you're a regular, like you're in here. Like my father-in-law, he's been a part of Four Saints well before I knew it existed. He's done most of our can art and a lot of t-shirts and things. So they used him for a long time, did a lot of designs. My fiance is an artist. She's done a shirt design for us. I've done one. We have another guy in town that does t-shirts and graphic design. He's done a ton. So that's one thing Joel was always doing, that I've also taken that and just trying to put fresh designs out there, because like Joel said, when we started, like you can only do so many colors. And then if you're like, I mean, I have this design in every color already. And so it's just putting something new on the shirts past that. And now we're to a point, 7 years in, we're talking to Joel. It's like, all right, now we can start like have like retro designs that are, 5+ years old, but like 5 years is a long time, where we have regulars now that have been in there for just a year, and they see shirts from these regulars who have been there from day one, and like, that shirt is awesome.
It's true.
So it's
Yeah.
like, so now we have a backlog of shirts where we can start using those and mix in with some new designs that I come up with, or one of the other bartenders come up with, and collaborate with them. So it's just trying to do that and make the most comfortable, aesthetically pleasing shirt that we can. And
it's another way to bring the community together, just having so many different people designing or interested in designing.
It's
cool to see all their creations.
Yeah, exactly. And like another one of our bartenders, Jamie, like she's taken an interest recently in like the graphic design and the illustrations. Like her and I will kind of spitball some ideas back and forth. And like our brewer, I was like, hey, like you brew the beer. Like, what do you want? Like, what is the shirt that you want us to have that we have not had? And so like one of the designs I did was like it was Andrew's design. I just made it. So, but just trying to include everyone, and the customers, they love hearing that stuff where it's like, yeah, like Andrew, like he wanted to do this, and they're like, oh, cool. Like that's a cool thing to know, especially that's one thing we can hone in on, is a tight knit community that not like bigger places like Charlotte may not have, where it's like, no, everyone knows Andrew does the beer. Like people know faces, like everyone knows Rich Powell. Like they love Rich. They're going to buy the shirt with his art because they love that guy. I mean, he's a great artist, but also he's a great guy. So there's things like that we can kind of, capitalize on, to where it's like, it's a cool thing for everyone across the board.
I have a funny question. What? Have you ever like been out in the community and saw your shirt and like, oh, hey.
Usually
I made it.
Yeah. Usually when I do that, I see what I could have done better on the shirt though.
Oh
no. Or if it was like a slight misprint, I'm like, oh, that's like 10% good. Like that one shouldn't have made it. They control. That's funny. But it is. That's just the critical part of my brain. But it is very cool walking around and people or when I see one of those, the Grateful Dead shirt come through the door and they will like ask to see it reprinted. That is like a good feeling, and it's cool to see that.
Thank you for listening in to the first half of our interview with Joel McClosky and Riley Till of Four Saints Brewing Company in Asheboro, North Carolina. We hope that you'll tune in to the next episode 51B, where we continue the conversation with Joel and Riley as they share with us how they have developed a successful retail apparel program.
We've reached the end of this episode, but there's plenty more to keep you busy. For online source materials and proven case studies delivered right to your inbox, sign up for our mailing list by visiting marketthebrew.com. We'll see you next time on Market the Brew.